Hello, welcome to this week's online masterclass of Enterprise Nation. Something a little different this week. We've got an in conversation with, which I am massively looking forward to. We are chatting to Jess Butcher, who is the founder of Blippar. This is one of our Go and Grow online campaigns, which is basically all around helping entrepreneurs growing a great business on the web. So it's supported by VeriSign, Microsoft, and 123reg. And you can find out more about Go and Grow if you head to enterprisenation.com/go and grow. So now I've got that bit out of the way, we can actually have a chat, Jess. How are you doing? Thanks so much for joining us this lunchtime.
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the chat.
Yeah, it's great. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a bit of a chinwag, and then any questions that anyone has, if you're watching and you want to ask Jess any questions or things come up that you want to run by her, just ping a little question in the box, and then we will come to that in about 15 minutes or so and pass your questions on. It will be our pleasure to pass them on. So if you've got any, things you're wondering about, just let us know. So Jess, let's start at the beginning, I reckon. The idea for Blippar, how did it happen? How did it become a business? Talk us through a bit about that, if you don't mind.
Sure. So we started Blippar about just over 5 years ago now, 5.5, nearly 6. Gosh, time flies. And it all started around a recognition of a new technology that was coming to the fore. So I'm very fortunate in that I business partnered with 3 incredibly technically and product genius individuals who were all working together and playing around with this brand new technology called augmented reality. And they were all working together at a company, but spending their evenings sort of brainstorming what this new technology could mean for the future. And they invited me into those brainstorms, and like many startups, we kind of sat around in the pub thinking about what the future could look like, and sort of theorizing about business models and ideas. I think we were all aspiring entrepreneurs and were waiting for that sort of spark and catalyst of inspiration to hit, and it really catalyzed around the technology and the expertise that in particular Omar, our CTO, had around image recognition and augmented reality technology. So what we saw was that obviously the smart device is in everybody's hand. It's the new, the third hand really, and indeed a new eye on the world. So the camera of the device was increasingly being used for selfies and to capture our day-to-day lives. And we realized that that same eye could not only capture pictures, but also potentially recognize things in the real world and interpret them and kind of unlock them into interactive experiences. So just that as a base concept is incredibly exciting, and we thought that there was a huge opportunity there to build an effective lens or browser around image recognition that could look at things in the physical world and unlock them in that way and bring them to life. So from that early theory, we started working on prototypes, and immediately myself as a business developer and marketer started tapping into my network of people at agencies, at brands, at media owners, to explore the possibilities, to try and whet their appetite, get them excited about what this could mean for them, and start to find first proof of concept projects that we could do together with key brands. And it happened really fast. I think to a certain extent we're in the right place at the right time with the right technology. Nobody could look at it and not be wowed. People had a very physical response to a can of Coke jumping to life when they looked at it through their phone, or a video that seemed to play in the middle of a printed page. And so very, very quickly we started getting some proof of concept projects going with key brands and agencies. And that demonstrated to us that there was absolutely a business there to be started, and within I think about 6 weeks of testing that concept, we were all quitting our day jobs and getting set up in an office in London and hitting the ground running really, and sort of cobbled together the business model and the plan as we went, and then started to take it to market. So it was a very, very exciting time, and part of it was great timing, but really it was down to strong tech and I think a business model that looked slightly more appealing to many than the more technically focused people within that space previously. We were presenting the tech not just as a tech, but as a behavior and a sort of emotional connection for consumers and brands, as opposed to augmented reality, an SDK or an API, you know, the more techie terminology that many people within that space were still using at that time. So it kind of made its own business case.
Yeah, and also I wonder as well, the breadth of experience you mentioned there about the different backgrounds that you guys had as founders, like, you know, that is a really cool, that would have really helped, I guess, as well, to make it a bit more realistic, perhaps.
Absolutely. As you looked at the four of us as co-founders, we had Rish, the CEO, who's really the visionary behind this space and is considered, I think, the leading expert in the world in terms of how AR and visual technologies will game change how we look at the physical world around us. Omar, the CTO, is, as I say, very, very talented technical brain. Steve is a creative. Now, his role there was so important because it was about the translation of that technology into something beautiful, something that really engaged people and brought these brands to life in a way that they could identify with and consumers could identify with. And for myself, I'm a salesperson and I'm a marketer. I always was interested in how we could take that tech and almost de-tech it to make it more accessible. Yeah. So rather than talking about AR, it's more about the cereal box jumping to life and a piece of art being unlocked, or the Harry Potterification of a print page, which resonated much more with the traditional marketers we were talking to, as opposed to digital marketers who have been more inclined to go with three-letter acronyms for CPAs and CPCs and what have you. So that was a perfect complement of different skills at that stage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like the dream combo. It's like, if you want to do it, this is what you need. And it's amazing, though, hearing that within 6 weeks and all those, tests and stuff like that you were then up and running and, giving up your day jobs. I mean, that's unbelievable to hear in that space of time. But what sort of challenges did you face? I'm sure there was the other side of the coin as well. Interested to hear a bit more about those and how you dealt with those at that time, or even up till now, I guess.
Oh. There's so many challenges in startups, and then when you become a scale-up, those challenges are very different again. There are business challenges, and there are also very much personal challenges to the individuals, to myself as an entrepreneur. And I'd say with every month there was a very, very different challenge, some of which are true for all startup businesses, whether it's just the timing and speed that you go to market, how quickly you spend your money or jump into new territories, where to focus, and indeed what sort of business model you want to employ. I mean, it was very difficult for us, being first with a new behavior, to think about how we would price this technology. Should we go down a performance-based route? Every time somebody interacts with your product, you pay. And that was why not? Let's do that. Let's put our money where our mouth is. That was our first theory. And then we realized that actually we were selling our technology to traditional marketers, people that were used to buying off rate cards at flat rates. They were buying billboards or print. Different. So they didn't like it. They just couldn't get their head around it. So they offered us a flat rate fee and said, can we cap it there? And we kind of went, oh, that's interesting. That's probably more than we might have made in the performance. So yes, that as a pricing model makes sense for them to take us seriously, for them to need to work with us to justify an ROI on this, and it became a sensible price point that helped us to pay our people and to hire people into the products and services that we were offering. It was very different from what we had anticipated. You find out things that don't work, and any startup has to make some very quick, snap and gut-led decisions about which direction to focus on, because time is money in any startup environment, and you need to be able to pivot and flip and change quite quickly according to the circumstances or the market reaction that you're getting. And I think that's the biggest challenge, is being able to do that in a way that's confident and bullish, that also keeps your staff motivated. It doesn't feel flaky to them. That's the other challenge. When you have gone from being an employee to becoming an employer, you really need to shift your mindset. You're not one of the team anymore. You're trying to lead. You're trying to create a vision, and you need to make decisions that sometimes you might not feel 100% confident about, but your team needs to know that you are. So there's these personal challenges that go hand in hand with some of the business challenges in those early stage, where, you know, a lot rests on which slight pivot you might take and how quickly that might have burnt the cash you have in the bank, versus, you know, a different decision, or one that demotivates your team in some way. So I'd say the startup decisions and challenges are much more gut related and speed related, and also belief and scale of vision related. So they're a little less tangible in those early stages. And then as the business grows, they become a little bit more formulaic. You can start to look at those challenges more in specific boxes. For example, talent, you know, hiring the right people and retaining the right people, or culture. You know, who do you want to be as a company, and how do you build your structure in a way that culture is retained, particularly if you intend, for example, on entering new markets where it can be very hard to keep a culture consistent across different territories. Then you've got funding. You know, what do we need? How are we going to bootstrap this? You know, how do we look at our finances going forward? And then you've got all your professional services. You know, what are the legal implications to what I'm doing? You know, what are the accounting implications and cash flow implications? So, you know, those challenges shift, I think, in year one quite rapidly from sort of gut-based, how do we actually put the building blocks in place, to then the logistic boxes and challenges of how do we do this in a way that's truly scalable, and think about that early enough so you're not correcting mistakes later and making a mess. And we definitely, you know, didn't put things in place as early as we should have done, for example, and learnt the hard way. But you get there, and you have to first and foremost be kind to yourself about, you know, the messy route that you might take in order to achieve what you want to achieve, because startups are messy, and to me that's the fun of it. But some people are suited to that messiness, and some people less so.
Yeah, and it's all so much easier in hindsight, isn't it? It's like very easy to look back and go, oh, that would have been, you know, you don't know until you try with these things, I guess. You were mentioning there about funding, Jess. Interested to hear a little bit more about that. Obviously, with all the recruitment and all these things you were mentioning there in terms of your growth, how did you fund the business initially? How did you get that stuff sort of going to start with?
Yeah, so we've had pretty much every funding different route that's been out there. So I mean, actually for year one we bootstrapped the business because we discovered that there was a lot of hunger for what we were doing. There was a lot of appetite to test and trial with us, and the brands, agencies and media owners we were working with were happy to pay, not huge amounts, but enough to sustain the small team that we had that was working on these proof of concept projects. And we actually hired, I think, up to about 10, 15 people within the fees that we were getting on a project by project basis. That gave us that proof of concept that was brilliant, because when it meant that we did go for funding, we had a proven track record and a revenue model and a team that showed our credibility for the first investor to then look at. And that happened towards the end of year one, when we brought a venture capital firm on board. They were in a related space, very excited to see what we were doing business model wise and technology wise, and they have remained a great advisor and board member in our business since that day, and a fantastic partner to us. And since then we've now done four funding rounds. We have had different investors join us at each one of those rounds, each of whom have brought different expertise and interest to our business, and you know, we've taken that funding in quite quick succession, because frankly a business like ours has huge global ambitions. You know, we can sum up our ambition in a simple phrase, which is we seek to become a global verb. You know, think Googling, think tweeting. We aspire Blipping to be you know, the next big technical verb. And so we need to have very significant funding partners with us to help us realize that vision. And, you know, at each round that we've done, I guess we have successfully demonstrated how we hope to realize that vision, our success as business leaders in building the right team and the right technology to fulfill that vision. And then at each stage have brought people in who can enhance that vision in some way, either with expertise or, of course, deep pockets that can sustain the scale of growth that we're experiencing as a business, which has been very exciting.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so great to get this insight on it all. It is just so fascinating. What about marketing strategy? You're talking about funding, but how has that changed as the business has grown? You talk us a little bit through about that, the sort of how that's sort of come about.
Sure. I mean, we're quite a unique business in terms of our marketing strategy because even though we're a consumer app, for the first sort of 4 or 5 years, 4 years, we've been very much a B2B business. We've never actually gone out and said to consumers, hey, we're Blippar, download us. We're a really cool way to look at the world around you. Instead, we have worked with our partners, the Cokes, the Pepsis, the Procter and Gambles, the Condé Nasts, Kellogg's, Nestle, people like that, who have worked with us on that marketing. So rather than us saying we're Blippar, download us, instead it was a Kit Kat bar that had, I'm an interactive Kit Kat bar, use the Blippar app to unlock me, or I'm an interactive cereal box, or this week the pages of Stylist are interactive, turn to page 3 to find out how to do it. So it isn't a very web techie marketing proposition that we've had to develop. It's been a very strategic, partnership-led type of marketing strategy. It was in those early years, certainly. We're now shifting into more of a consumer proposition. So we have switched on millions and millions of physical world entities now, which means that you don't just have to wait for a brand to tell you that they're interactive to use Blippar. You can now simply fire up the app. You can look at a flower. You can look at a work of art. You could look at a car or any logo and start to connect educational or entertaining content from it. And of course, that's quite a different proposition now. So we're starting to talk to consumers more directly. We use PR very intensively. So PR has been a big strand for us. And there's lots of different stories to our consumer marketing piece, which we're starting to evolve more and more now. Although, to be clear, we're still in the early stages of that because it's still mostly our partners that are doing that marketing for us. And increasingly, you'll start to see Blippar talking to consumers directly as our sort of visual browser proposition expands and extends, which is a really exciting time.
Yeah, I was going to say, mega exciting. Jess, obviously there's been a huge amount of financial success. The term unicorn gets bandied around left, right and centre when we're talking about you. And I know that's not something that you're really able to talk about much. But in public knowledge, there is this, a lot of knowledge around the fact that you have had seriously successful funding rounds. And so just interested, why you think the company has achieved that level of success, and maybe any advice you've got for others maybe wanting to do the same, because it is a serious success story.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we're very, very flattered right now to be held up as one of the sort of British technology success stories. And I think the reasons for that are because we bucked a lot of the trends within the AR space. When we started 5 years ago, everyone said, yeah, it's nice tech, but it's a bit gimmicky, isn't it? And we lasted the course. We demonstrated through our results and our data that this technology can be harnessed for incredible marketing benefit. We've learned, we've held on to everything that we've done, so we kind of haven't empowered the market too quickly to come into the tech and become a tech business. We've been a technology and marketing and content company for a while to try and really learn and demonstrate best practice for this as a new medium. And ultimately, that has got us the results that have raised eyebrows where other companies in our space haven't. So I think that is really the secret behind the continued interest. Concurrently with that, there's also been a huge amount of exciting developments more broadly around the world. I mean, you just need to look at Pokemon Go and its success earlier this year. I think it got more downloads in a week than the nearest game had, within a year, which again was bonkers, and it was fantastic for us because whereas people have been saying AR's cool, yes, but it's not really ready yet until wearables come in, is it? And Pokemon Go demonstrated overnight that the phone is absolutely capable of harnessing this sort of experience in a way that's really, really fun and really engaging for consumers. And of course, then you've got a lot of investors around the world going, ooh, okay, so who else is doing interesting things in AR? And, you know, we tend to come up top when you do a search along those lines. You know, we've internationalized very quickly over the last 4 or 5 years. We've now got 300 people across 10 offices around the world. So we're demonstrating not only that the technology is good, that we're in the right place at the right time, but also that we know how to build a business as entrepreneurs. And those are all the sorts of ingredients that investors will look at and be very attracted to. So I guess that explains, you know, how we've got to where we are. Having said that, we kind of had to go this route, because you can't just be a verb in London. You know, you can't just create a behavior like this where your clients are international brands that sell their products all over the world for just a small geographical part of their market. So, you know, we had to think very big, we had to think very globally, otherwise we probably don't have a business. So that wasn't really an option for us. And it's terrifying sometimes, you know, the sort of scale of and pace of growth that we have to do, but we're very confident in it, and obviously have got an investment. But to be perfectly clear, I don't believe all businesses need to aspire to that. And I don't think it's right for all entrepreneurs. You know, there are hugely successful mum and pop shop businesses and lifestyle businesses and regional businesses that, you know, they just to get your core market right, or a small high value proposition is an incredibly lucrative high margin opportunity that can support a tremendous lifestyle and a number of very engaged and happy team staff members. So, you know, there are so many different types of businesses that come with different degrees of risk and reward. You know, part of me sometimes thinks, oh gosh, it would be so much easier and less stressful to have, you know, a business where you could see everything and you weren't working across all these time zones with, you know, all the scale and multiple zeros that go into everything and every service provider's bill that comes into you. But it really depends on what your vision is and what your product is. And, you know, each to their own as far as the different business models that are out there. And just as an aside, I don't like the term unicorn, because to me it sounds like it's not going to exist for long and it's mythical and, you know, not real. Whereas, you know, to shamelessly nick somebody else's term, Gareth Williams from Skyscanner said he prefers Rabbit, a real actual business building interesting technology. And that brilliant. Certainly is that is my preference over unicorn as well, because that's certainly how Blippar sees itself.
Oh, that's brilliant. Fair enough. That's great. We'll remember that one. Jess, there's a couple more questions. We've had loads of questions in, so I'm just going to quickly ask you. I'm interested in the potential of AR for small business owners. Obviously, that's, you know, Enterprise Nation. It's at the heart of what we do. Just a couple of sentences on your thoughts around that for small business owners, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So I don't think there's been a huge amount of opportunity for AR for small business owners to date, because there's a high barrier to entry as far as sort of costs and execution. That is rapidly diminishing. So now there are lots of online and SaaS tools where, you know, any individual who might be a freelance consultant could potentially go on and turn their business card interactive, or turn their logos interactive. I think certainly from our perspective, our knowledge and an area of interest is how you can incorporate digital content and applications into the physical world. So if you're a physical retailer, how can you stop people comparison shopping whilst they're in your retail environment? Or if you're an online retailer, how can you put your digital content into the physical environment by, you know, offering deals, or, you know, putting sponsored listings around a dog, for example, if you happen to sell Christmas Santa coats for dogs, you know, at this time of year. So there's a huge amount of opportunity to be in the right place at the right time, and to get either your digital product into the physical world, or to create a digital experience out of your physical product, which is where I think AR and image recognition technologies are going to become very, very exciting for small business owners. And I expect that to happen within the next year, that you can actually log into online panels and simply sort of upload an image or associate yourself with an object in the real world, and have your content appear and convert and activate potential customers at the moment at which they're feeling that spontaneous curiosity. I mean, I can only speak for our own business models, but those tools are already available and accessible on our website, and I'm sure we'll see others of that kind coming to the fore in the next few months and years.
It's so exciting. It's such an exciting time, and it's great to hear that, that it's affecting all different levels of business. It's brilliant. Just finally, this masterclass is part of our Go and Grow online campaign, which, is helping entrepreneurs build amazing businesses on the web. What's your one bit of advice for doing that based on your experience with Blippar? If you had to choose just one, what do you reckon you'd go for?
That's tough.
Or you can go for a list.
We're a tech platform as opposed to a tech-enabled business, and there is a distinction between the two. Our business is very, very complicated technology that we're kind of evolving and building from scratch. So it's a bit different from what I would consider to be a tech-enabled business and an internet business that's built on the web. And from my work with internet entrepreneurs, I think that the opportunities there are immense, because you no longer need to have huge technical knowledge and background and skills and coding in order to build these businesses. You can tap into so many incredible off-the-shelf tools, and you can get businesses up and running and test ideas and test opportunities, test marketing campaigns with a quick social campaign or a quick pay-per-click campaign in a way that has never been possible in history before. And I think that's what's most exciting, the ability to play and test and evolve your ideas in a time frame of days rather than months or years, and at very, very limited costs is what's hugely exciting, and how the internet has revolutionized startup culture. And hand in hand with that goes the fact that there's so much information. You can simply Google, how do I set up a Facebook campaign, and get a video that will show you that within seconds. So the ability to self-learn and to educate yourself without having to pay for hugely expensive digital marketing courses is unprecedented. There is so much information out there, which your organization is partly responsible for, and a fantastic conduit to sort of channel the best of the web for your users. And I'd say that's what's most exciting. The only limitation to an internet entrepreneur, and this would be my advice, sorry, wordy, a bit longer than you'd hope for answer to your question, is it's about confidence, value, and vision. And when it comes to building a business like that, the logistics are no longer your hurdle. It's more about how big are you thinking, how bold are you thinking, and then just how creatively you can execute, which is so exciting.
God, yeah. I mean, talk about feeling fired up. I'm not going to lie. I'm like, whoa, let's go. Jess, we're going to run on slightly late, if that's okay, because we've got a few questions. I wouldn't mind getting through as many as I could. So if everyone's all right with that.
Sorry, my fault. I talked too much.
Don't say that. That's only a good thing. It's not often we get to chat to you, so we're very happy to be making the most of it. Don't apologise. I do have to just pick this up from Grace, who was referring to something earlier, how you said about your journey being messy, and she was saying how absolutely brilliant it is to hear that your journey was messy, because it makes her feel a bit better about her route, which is so true. It's lovely to hear. Right, where shall I start? Kuljit, thank you very much for your question. Jess, do you have any business mentors, and if so, any advice on how you chose them? That's quite an interesting one. I don't know if you've got anyone that, or any process.
I think that's a brilliant question, and I'm glad that somebody asked it, because to me this has been the secret of my personal journey over the last 5 years. Now there's business mentors with a capital M, and then there's mentoring with a lowercase m, and I prefer the second definition, and that's how I've tended to structure my personal advisory board, which is another way it's sometimes referred to. You should think of yourself as a business as well as your business as a business. And I think it's absolutely imperative that from the very early stages of starting or even considering becoming an entrepreneur, you start to pull people around you who have advice and experience that could be valuable to you. And now that doesn't have to involve a formal email or introduction or handshake at an event where you say, will you be my mentor? It can simply involve a quick conversation or a LinkedIn request that somebody says, I was fascinated, I'd love to connect with you. Here's what I'm doing. You know, could you spare time for coffee at some point? Now, you might make 10 or so of those requests and only have one response, because obviously other entrepreneurs are incredibly busy. But people will respond. They appreciate that they have been helped on their way up the ladder, and giving advice and support back, and listening to startups and feeling the energy and enthusiasm that comes from individuals at that stage of that journey is very beguiling to other entrepreneurs as well. And what I have done from day one is sort out people who have some similar experiences. Now, whether that's with similar technology, and I can ask them practical questions, whether it's with similar rates of growth, and I can ask them tactical questions with regards to, you know, how to hire and professional services, or whether it's identifying somebody that started a business with children the same age as me. You know, how did they deal with that? What were their, you know, sleepless nights and problems with striking that balance correctly? Personally, I found it wonderful to have made so many friends amongst the female entrepreneurial community. We share a lot. We've become personal advisors to each other as well as professional advisors. And it can be a lonely business, starting a business. You know, having some of that soft sort of opportunity to share and talk about how lonely that can be, as well as talking about some of the professional challenges of growing a business, is so important. And there's some people within the network I might only speak to once a year, and others that I'll talk to, you know, every couple of weeks. So I think it's very, very important to invest at least 10% of your time in that network, keeping them updated, informing them about your progress, and seeing if you can help them, of course, as well. It might be that your technology can do something for their business, or you can introduce them to somebody. I'm a great believer in karma in these sorts of relationships, and that's what makes the healthiest of mentoring relationships, in my opinion.
That's great. Thank you so much. A great question and a brilliant answer. So good to hear that, Jess. Thanks so much. There's a couple of questions in around your competitors and competition, or people in similar spaces. Thanks, Ruben. Thanks, Anne, for your questions. I'm just going to merge them. How do you get over the issue of QR code readers that are generic, whereas your technology is obviously a bit more proprietary and presumably competes with people like Zappa, Erasma? I don't know if I've pronounced that right. Apologies. I'm not an expert in this field. Any insight on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, there's the general answer to competitor challenges, and then there's the specific response to specific challenger technologies. I probably won't go into too much detail on the latter, but you could spend your whole life looking over your shoulder and not focusing on what you do as a vision, and we took a very determined stance on that, which was that, you know, we would have a healthy eye on what was going on, if there were things that we could learn from the rest of the market, but ultimately we just had to believe in what we wanted to achieve and stay true to that vision, put our head down and achieve it, because you can waste far too much energy thinking that the Me Too's are coming up behind you too fast and might overtake. I mean, in our space, we were very fortunate, first mover advantage. There were some players in the market. Erasma was one, Zappa absolutely, and they've been doing some fantastic work. And I think firstly, don't be afraid of it. The more people within your space, particularly when you're doing something new, as we are, with a brand new behavior, people aren't used to looking at the physical world and extracting information from it. It's near impossible to do that on your own. You know, you kind of need to have competitors in the market to demonstrate that this is coming and what's happening, and to grow that consumer awareness. So in actual fact, when Erasma went to the States, because we launched at the same time and were head-to-head with them for a very long time, and then they got sold, I think, to Hewlett-Packard, and we didn't see them, we didn't come across them that much, and it really hurt us because there were fewer people evangelizing this behavior in the market around us. And Zappa does fantastic, beautiful, creative work, particularly in the entertainment field. That's very much their specialism, whereas we're a bit broader than that, but they go much deeper with the sort of work that they do. And again, we've learned a huge amount from them, and they have from us. So embrace the competitive nature of a market, because you will need that in fields like this. QR codes we're not so worried about. They're ugly as sin. Nobody really uses them that much anymore. We used to be called a QR code on steroids, which I quite liked. But they're one-dimensional. It's a simple web link that we can do, plus, another gazillion things on top of that.
I love it. Standing on your head.
Absolutely.
That's brilliant. Jess, thank you. I think we're going to have to wrap things up there. There's a few other questions. I'm apologising that we didn't get round to answering everybody's, and thank you so much to everyone for joining us. What a fantastic way to spend a Tuesday lunchtime. I've absolutely loved it. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, so I'm really hoping that everyone who's been joining us today has as well. Jess, thank you so much for giving your time, and yes, it's been great to chat to you. Don't forget that next week we have got another masterclass. Next week it's why search marketing is so crucial if your business is expanding overseas. So back to sort of a presentation format next week. But yeah, thank you very much to Jess for today's Go and Grow Online campaign supported masterclass, helping businesses grow on the web, and we're supported by VeriSign, Microsoft, and 123Reg, who we are hugely grateful to for supporting us in this. And you can find out more information around any of these bits and pieces on our website, enterprisenation.com/go and grow. And we've just launched a load of new events as well, which look really exciting for 2017. Just make sure I mention that in there as well. Have a fantastic rest of your afternoons, everybody, and look forward to seeing you next week. Big thanks again, Jess.